Welcome to episode 13 of the Culture and Arts Podcast.
Episode 13.
We are back in black. Call me Amy Winehouse. Literally wearing black pants, ladies. I mean, honey. If you're listening, we're gonna edit that. We're gonna edit that part out right now. Jason, what's up?
Hey, I'm good. How you been?
Good. Did you hear about the David Murrell thing?
I've heard a little bit about the David Murrell thing.
For those who do not know, David Murrell was supposed to be on episode 13 of The Cap because we said on the last episode that we recorded that he would be, and that the three of us would be back together again. But there has been a little bit of a, well, I don't know, what would you call it? A situation? What kind of conflict would you?
A kerfuffle? I don't know.
A kerfuffle. There has been a Cap kerfuffle, and there is a chat thread on Facebook, and each of us every week communicate through said chat. And what we like to do is just talk about the articles or the different topics that we will be discussing during the week on the podcast. Now, it's been a little while since there has been a regular circulation of Cap podcasts, whereas we were once doing it every week. Part of that is my problem because I recently moved with my family, and I'm wrapping up some schoolwork. And, you know, and then David, who was supposed to come back when we were ready, decided that he was angry. And I will tell you why he was angry. I named our chat thread, I renamed it from the CAP, Culture and Arts Podcast, to Prince is greater than Michael Jackson.
Yes.
And I used the little greater than symbol. Mm-hmm. Not greater than or equal to.
Right.
Greater than. And I changed the picture to a picture of Prince from Purple Rain. Now, everyone knows how big of a Michael Jackson fan David Murrell is.
He's the biggest.
The biggest. And when he saw that name change come across, reports say that while he was at work, he stood up and he threw a bunch of papers across the room, and he went on a rampage through one of the units where he works, throwing cereal and a gallon of milk, a couple chairs.
Yeah. These reports were on TMZ, so they're not yet confirmed. But
Right. But they were the first to confirm Paul Walker's death, so there is a good chance that they could be credible.
Right.
So now David Murrell is, until I apologize and I claim that Michael Jackson is greater than Prince, not greater than or equal to, but greater than, David Murrell will not come back to the Culture and Arts Podcast because he feels that I am being unjust and that I am lying to the American public, or at least to the public within that chat thread.
I have a feeling this is going to get ugly.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be like a Royal Rumble match of some sort, but it'll just be me and David, or like a last man standing, like a ladder match.
Yeah.
David will probably bring chairs and black ballet flats with white socks.
Just don't make me the special guest referee because I want to stay out of this.
You might have to be the Paul Bearer-esque manager, at least on the outside, so that when David hits me with the chair and then moonwalks across the ring, you'll be like, "Oh yes." Well, this week, man, the world just keeps getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better way to say it. The world is getting weirder.
I mean, if you would have asked me a year and a half ago, could the world get any more weird than it currently is, I would have looked around at Miley Cyrus and, I don't know, Kesha.
Yeah.
The fact that Justin Bieber is famous for anything.
Right.
And, you know, I would have said, nope, this is the Twilight Zone. This is about as weird as it gets.
Yeah.
I would be wrong.
Yes, you would.
So the Huffington Post today, this is a recent article, posts a story that is titled, Raelians, because we've heard that word before, right? Raelians want an embassy for the aliens in Canada. And it says, extraterrestrials want to move to Canada. That's according to the International Raelian Movement, a religious group that plans to formally petition the Canadian government on Wednesday for permission to build an embassy for aliens. Raelism was founded by former French auto racer and journalist Claude Vorilhon in the early 1970s, and he goes by Rael these days. The religion's central tenet is that all life on Earth was created by an extraterrestrial species called the Elohim as part of a giant science experiment. The group believes that the Elohim will return to Earth when a suitable embassy is built for them. the embassy would naturally be equipped with the landing pad for the Elohim spaceships. And the Raelian movement was long lobbied for permission to build the structure in Israel, but they've been met with refusal. So now they are asking to build the Elohim in Canada. Of all the places, you go from Israel, these are God's chosen people,
right,
to Canada,
right,
who are nobody's chosen people, right?
Right. The odd thing is, the article goes on to say that they're not going to be real picky on where the land is as long as it's not in the Arctic. Well, excuse me, beggars can't be choosers, you know?
I'm pretty sure when what you're trying to purchase is essentially a large temple for a alien, while we have never confirmed the existence of aliens, I would say you're going to just get what you get.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought we had problems with, illegal aliens in this country. Just imagine if they start building a temple.
All I know is what alien race would want to come to Canada or species or whatever, and they would say, "Take me to your leader." And who would they go see? Rob Ford? The aliens would be packed and shuttling home by the end of the night.
That would be the shortest intergalactic trip ever.
This man is obviously on crack.
Is there something about the aliens coming to see the Raelians? I don't know. The rhyme scheme makes me wonder about this.
Well, my good friend Chris Spangle, he talks a lot about Canada on the We're Libertarians podcast, and he says that they are what he calls the Great White Menace of the North, because he says that 98% of the Canadian population is along the Canadian-U.S. border, and he believes that the reason for that is that they are conspiring to invade the U.S. at some point. So while we're always worried about immigration from the Mexican border side, and we have the war on drugs and all these things that are going on, he says that the Canadian border is really where our efforts should be at, because they're going to take us like a thief in the night. They are going to catch us by surprise one of these days. He also believes that Justin Bieber and other Canadian celebrities who are awful, like Alan Thicke, are Canadian operatives. and they are simply spying on the American culture so that the rest of the people know when the right time to attack is.
Well, Bieber has gotten a good look at our legal system recently.
He sure has. He is. Justin Bieber, when did he become the white Chris Brown? I mean, come on.
Really just within the last year or two, he started having all kinds of problems.
And man, I can't imagine how many Culture and Arts podcasts of the 13 that we've put together we've spent insulting Justin Bieber, but there clearly is just not enough airtime.
Yeah. We may need a spin-off show.
So they want to build a room for aliens. And, there was a thing in Oklahoma recently where there was a group of Satanists. They were upset because Christians had the Ten Commandments at a courthouse. And so they started a crowdsourcing campaign to build a statue of Baphomet, this satanic statue, and this goat-headed god sitting in a chair with small children next to him, apparently learning from him or something. And it's just like every extremist group gets to pick their wacko person that they enjoy, and they want to build a statue.
I'm not an expert on the difference between, say, a cult and an actual religion. I would say if there's spaceships involved, that's probably a cult.
But there are aliens in the foundations of Scientology also.
Right.
And they consider that a religion.
Part of that is there's probably a lot more Scientologists out there than Raelians.
But if we keep letting every whack job that wants a statue for their role model to have something, I mean, the next thing you know, somewhere in Germany, there's going to be a giant statue of David Hasselhoff. And I just think that we need to avoid the slippery slope while we still can, by all means.
I Googled this Claude Vorhelin, and he was born like in 1946. He wanted to become a race car driver. And he couldn't quite cut it, so he became a race car journalist. And I just thought, if anyone's qualified to found a religion, it's a race car journalist.
Race car journalist. So before it was take me to your leader, it was take me to your speeder, and then take me to your reader.
Right. See, speeder, reader, aliens, Raelians. There's just rhymes all over this thing.
If there's anything that the Culture and Arts podcast can offer you, it's that we know how to rhyme. They've got the symbol on their website. If you look at it, it looks like the Star of David with the Nazi swastika sewn into it.
Yeah, they actually changed it because of the swastika. They felt like that was the reason they couldn't get the embassy built in Israel.
Because of the swastika.
Yeah.
Like, that's the line. That's the...
that might
worship aliens all day long, man. Build them a temple. But we draw the line at Nazism.
that might be one of the reasons.
It's just insane, man. Cults are one of the most interesting things because you have to like sit there and for us who are on the outside, ask yourself, how is it that people buy into this? Mm-hmm. And if you look at Jim Jones or Charles Manson or I guess, I don't know, any cult or even Scientology, you have to just like, how are people saying, yeah, that sounds right?
Mm-hmm. I think part of it with Scientology to a certain degree. I think you have to be invested to a certain point before they start talking about the aliens, because I've heard like there's almost a celebrity wing of the Scientologists that don't necessarily get that aspect of it taught to them.
Oh, so that they can be better spokespeople.
Right, almost like they're preaching a different version of Scientology than what is actually out there. That's just what I've heard.
So Tom Cruise is not a follower of Xenu. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
This is a good thing because you think he's a nut job, but at least he's not got the alien aspect.
Right.
Okay. I will give him that. Moving on. We wanted to discuss something, a little bit serious.
A little bit more serious,
a little bit more. More serious than Raelians.
Right.
Not hard to beat, I suppose.
Not a very high bar there. You know, Edward Snowden had the big interview with Brian Williams last week, and I just thought it was fascinating.
Me too.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, with the Snowden story, I've kind of had my head in the sand a little bit. I hadn't really followed it all that much, and this really opened my eyes.
We talked about the Snowden situation on another podcast that we did, the Show Report, and they've talked about it extensively on We Are Libertarians. But as someone who, was not really paying attention to it all prior to this interview, what struck you?
Well, two things that really hit home for me was, one, I was always kind of a guy that felt like, you know what, I'm not really doing anything, so if they want to watch what I'm doing on the internet, I don't see it. It seems like more of a waste of time than anything. But then Brian Williams he specifically asked about looking up the score of a hockey game on his phone.
Right.
And you can imagine how often I'm looking up sports on my phone.
Probably like all the time.
Quite a bit. I always thought it was rather harmless. And he actually... Harmless is what I was trying to say there. But,
New words to go along with Raelian.
I thought it was kind of harmless, but he went on to explain that they can actually get quite a bit of detail about you just from looking up that kind of thing. And that was like, whoa.
Well, he was talking about they not only detect where you go, but they also use that metadata and they can detect keystrokes. So when you're touching the keys on the pad, when you spell a word and then you misspell it, you backspace a few steps and then you stop and you think. They can trace all of that, and they take that into consideration almost as though they're trying to know you as a person. They know when you're thinking, when you've made an error, and all of those things. And that information, while it might seem pointless, I would hate for someone to know me as well as I know myself. At least someone that I don't get the courtesy of knowing back.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that really stuck out to me is because, it's not like they're just seeing the end result of what you type. They're seeing the changes and edits you make. And to me, that's almost like watching my thought process.
Right.
And that just really creeped me out.
It is creepy. The whole thing was very creepy. And to just get that information, although I will say, there were a lot of people who, prior to that interview, they thought that Edward Snowden was going to come across as a rebellious person, as someone who was sticking it to the man, someone like me. And it ended up being quite the opposite. Right. It ended up being that he was very respectable, very well-spoken, very well-reasoned, and he seemed like someone who has, in his mind, the best interests of our country at heart.
Yes.
And I believe that he does, and I believe that our government doesn't much of the time. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree, I mean, it was just a captivating interview because there were things that we didn't know about him before, like he was trained as a spy. And it was just like, wow. Like, here they were telling us he was just this low systems analyst.
Yeah, an analyst. That seems perfectly harmless.
Yeah. I mean, he was just a guy that they had doing some work on computers. They could have, he could have been any Joe from the Geek Squad.
But, he was working undercover in Europe. So, there's a lot of involvement.
A lot of involvement. And I mean, so much goes into that. And that he has seen some things, and he has made that apparent. But he's also said that, he's afraid to come home because he knows that he will probably not be tried fairly. And he also explained that he had tried to use appropriate whistleblowing channels prior to doing what he did, which was ultimately pulling the curtain open, wide open for everyone to see. And I don't know. I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, because he went on to say that there are very good people working at the NSA. He said, but there are people in power that have crossed the line.
Yeah.
And he kind of feels bad that he's kind of gotten all the NSA lumped into this corrupt,
Because we all think they are now.
Right.
We all think Big Brother is watching now. And one of the things that he said that really impressed me was Brian Williams asked him straightforward, do you consider yourself to be a patriot? And he said, yeah. He said, well, that word is used so much that it gets kind of watered down, but a patriot is not someone who always puts service to his government first. A patriot is someone who knows when to uphold the Constitution, someone who knows when to warn his countrymen about violations that his government or oversteps that they are doing. And so I thought that was great because you could see that he, and at least in his mind, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, he has the idea that he is doing this because the people have a right to know what their government is up to. And while he does consider himself an American, and while he's proud to be an American, he wants to maintain that America is a place worth being proud of. Who can fault him for that?
Right. And personally, it's hard for me to think that if the government does have the ability to essentially, watch us type our emails and that sort of thing, there's got to be a lot of this that isn't so much about catching the bad guys. There's a lot of this that's just going to be done to keep their power.
Conspiracy theorists for some time have been talking about the government's ability to use your camera on your laptop or your computer and turn it on when it's not actually turned on, and look around your home with it and that kind of stuff. They've also speculated that same thing could be done using Xbox Kinect's technology and other things. And Snowden actually came out and said, yeah, they're able to do that.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of the line in The Avengers where they say, if it's connected to a satellite, it's eyes and ears for us.
Right.
And it turns out, that's actually the case.
Absolutely true, yeah. Except it's, unfortunately, not the Avengers that are watching.
Right.
Because how cool would it be if Captain America came to your house? I trust Captain America. I don't trust the NSA.
Right.
So there you have it. I mean, at the end of the day, now knowing what you know about Snowden and seeing that interview, where would you line up in the grand scheme of things?
I think he's absolutely done the right thing.
Hero, or do you think he's a criminal?
I think he's a hero.
Me too. Glad you feel that way. I hope that more people will start to feel that way, and more people will stand up and say this isn't right, and we need to not put up with this anymore.
Yeah. The other thought I had is a lot of this stuff came along after 9/11 and the Patriot Act and all this stuff. The one thing I can't help but wonder is with President Obama, him and his supporters have done so much blaming of the previous administration for everything that's wrong now. And okay. How come, they can't just say, oh, well, this all started under Bush, so we're going to fix this now? They want this power, too. Don't let anybody say this is a Democrat problem or a Republican problem.
Absolutely.
This is a government problem.
Absolutely. Amen, man. That's so true. There's no partisanship when it comes to power. Both parties want it.
Right.
Both parties crave it. They want to have some level of dominion over your life. And this is actually, David and I were having a conversation today about Rand Paul. And we temporarily called it a truce on Michael v. Prince.
Right.
But he was saying that, that he believes Rand Paul, being a small government guy, could be the guy to, infiltrate the Republican Party, run on their ticket, win the presidency, and bring back Reagan. Or, not in those words. He didn't use those words. This is hyperbole. But, but I don't think that at this point that's ever going to happen, only because I don't think that the government wants to relinquish any of its power. Mm-mm. And so for a party like the GOP, who is so benefited by systems like what they were explaining, or what Snowden was explaining, you're going to have a guy who's just going to go in and throw all of that away and make all of these people less rich, less powerful, and give them less capabilities as a government. I don't see that happening. I think that it's just going to, continue to be more of the same, no matter who's on the R ticket or the D ticket. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only way I think it could ever possibly change would be if, a party like the Libertarian Party actually got more than just one guy in there.
Right.
They'd have to get a real presence in Congress and probably in the White House as well.
Mm-hmm. And even then, it wouldn't be guaranteed to fix it, because they could just as easily sell out to whatever power structure exists.
Right.
Because people are people, and people like to be in charge of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And
because who knows what would happen once they got that taste of the power.
Yeah, absolutely. That is why, philosophically, less government is better, not because, of what we consider the obvious economic benefits or anything like that, but because there's no person that, in the words of Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, everybody's got a price. Mm-hmm. And it's always evident in our political system, it seems.
Yes. I kind of owe you an apology because I posted a link last week that turned out to be false.
Oh, the Hulk. You scared me with the Hulk.
Yeah. The day that Maya Angelou passed away, I came across an article about Lou Ferrigno dying in a car crash.
Yes.
And I bought into it immediately. And I really feel bad because I normally can't be fooled on this stuff.
They always say that celebrities die in threes.
Right.
And then shortly after, Alice from the Brady Bunch died. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, man, if Ferrigno actually had died, it would have made that a true statement.
Right.
But he's not dead.
He's not dead. The article, the website was trying to make it look like it came from USA Today. Mm-hmm. And the story was fascinating about he was driving down the highway and a car cut him off and they rear-ended each other and his car rolled like 11 times. It was just like, my God. I just got wrapped up. And see, I'm the kind of guy, I didn't believe Paul Walker died at first. Because that wasn't the first time that story came. There were rumors before.
Yeah.
And I'll never believe when Bill Cosby dies, because rest in peace, Bill Cosby has been on a trending topic on Twitter several times.
So, with Ferrigno not being dead, and by the way, there were a lot of jerks who were saying things like, I bet he didn't hear that car coming. And God. I was just like, wow. Here, these people actually thought he was dead, and they're making tasteless jokes. But luckily he's not, and I hope he smashes them.
Yes, Hulk smash.
But what is with these celebrity hoaxes? Why do people make up the fact that celebrities are dead? Is it just because people care and they like to get a rise?
I think a lot of it's just trying to get attention for your website. So they try to get a headline out there.
But does anyone visit the faux USA Today?
When they see the headline, they probably do.
Yeah. And why, if they're really trying to generate traffic, do they pick Ferrigno? Why not pick, Justin Timberlake or Barack Obama or somebody who's got a stronger presence?
I think maybe with Ferrigno, he's kind of mainstream enough everybody knows him, but he's not... He's maybe not got tons of paparazzi following him around all the time. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's just famous enough to draw people in, but not necessarily so famous that, like if they said it about Timberlake probably never has a moment alone.
Sure.
So that'd probably be debunked real quick.
Okay. So if it had been a Kardashian, then within moments we would have all known the truth. This actually got some traction. Mm-hmm. Because you shared it, and like you said, it got past you as the gatekeeper of information.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, man, that's terrible. So I shared it, and I'm like, Maya Angelou and the Hulk? Come on. This is a terrible day. And then and people were like, it's fake. It's a hoax. And I was like, it's from USA Today, guys. That's credible. And they're like, dude, no, it's not credible.
So I feel bad for, being fooled like that. But it did lead me to an article about 10 celebrities that had famous responses to fake death reports on the internet.
Okay, tell me who they were, and I'll respond. I haven't read this.
The first one it mentions was Hugh Hefner. And it said, the internet declared Hugh Hefner dead of a heart attack in July of 2011, and he went on to release a statement that says, I'm happy to see how many people are pleased that I'm not dead. I'm pleased too.
Well, that's kind of a funny response.
Right.
If he had said anything about Viagra, it would have made it a 10, but it's at least a 9.5.
Mm-hmm. The next one is Usher. And
Peace up, 8-town down.
It said that he received the fake news in April of 2012, and so he responded with a series of tweets that were shirtless photos of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And his response was, I must have died and went to heaven, alive and cold, kicking ass.
All right. So Usher's good.
Yeah, he is alive and well.
He's alive.
Okay, another one was John Bon Jovi. He was declared dead December 19th of 2011, and so he posted a picture of himself holding up a sign that said, Heaven looks a lot like New Jersey, and he put that day's date in it so people would know.
Now, see, people would care if he died, and if that had been a true statement, because from what I understand, he's wanted dead or alive.
Yes. And then one of my favorite ones, Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, man, I love Goldblum.
Oh, I know. He's fascinating. And it says, on June 25th of 2009, a prankster created a false death report online claiming that he had fallen from a cliff to his death in New Zealand. So to dispute this, he actually went on the Colbert Report.
Mm-hmm.
And he interrupted Stephen Colbert, and he came out and said, I'm so sorry to interrupt my friend Stephen, but look, I'm not dead. In fact, last week, I was not even in New Zealand. When Colbert informed Goldblum that New Zealand police had confirmed he was dead, the actor gave in and delivered his own eulogy. It says, no one will miss Jeff Goldblum more than me. He was not only a friend and a mentor, but he was also me.
Unfortunately, while the pranksters were incorrect about his physical death, they were correct about his career dying, because at some point it kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a pretty big star.
He was.
Independence Day was a huge blockbuster. He did Jurassic
Park.
And he's had quite a bunch of good films. And then he went on to just fall off the face of the planet. He had like a failed NBC show where he was a detective who talked to dead people.
Yeah, and he did, because he also did a season on Law and Order: Criminal Intent, one of those, and it just haven't heard from him in a while.
He just became a TV actor on shows that we don't watch,
right?
And that few people watch.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is Morgan Freeman.
Oh God!
And he put a photo on Facebook that said, "Like Mark Twain, I keep reading that I have died. I hope those stories are not true." But if they are, I'm happy to report that my afterlife seems identical to my life when I was alive. I did go to Las Vegas to begin work on the film Last Vegas. That is anything but a death sentence.
Now, how surprised would Morgan Freeman be? He passes away and he gets to the pearly gates only to be confronted by himself.
Yes.
This may or may not be edited, you tell me, but one of the funniest things that I've seen is Jimmy Kimmel's mean tweets, where he has celebrities read mean tweets about themselves from Twitter.
Those are good.
Those are hilarious. One of the funniest ones that I've seen was Darius Rucker, formerly of Hootie and the Blowfish. Mm-hmm. He read a tweet about himself that said, I would rather listen to Morgan Freeman narrate me through masturbation than listen to Darius Rucker sing. And I thought that was the most hilarious one.
Yeah, the next one, speaking of guys who are like sort of famous, Zach Braff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Famous for a time.
Yeah.
Love Scrubs.
Yeah, we were big fans of Scrubs. He had a fake death report in 2009, and so he released a video on YouTube where he said, "I'm alive. I'm here at Scrubs shooting the new Scrubs title sequence, which is a little bit like dying, so I guess that was semi-accurate. Also, I would never off myself with pills. If I had to do it, I would do it the way that everyone else would do it, by hitting myself with pots and pans."
Pots and pans.
Yeah. So he made a joke about it.
Yeah. If I wouldn't do it with pots and pans, if I had to, it would be a baby rattle. I would want them to think that I went crazy before I died. So I picked the most obscure object possible. Baby rattle seems like it would fit the bill.
I think so. That would be hard to top if you're looking for crazy ways to die.
Yeah, I mean, the pots and pans things is very Looney Tunes. Mm-hmm. I would want something a little bit more original and, something that's Joe. Mm-hmm. Who else uses a baby rattle?
Okay, the next one, we mentioned him earlier, Bill Cosby.
Okay.
On February 5th of 2010, he released a statement after one of his numerous fake death reports on Twitter. It says, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, for my rebuttal. As you well know, a dead person cannot rebuttal. Therefore, I am rebuttaling to tell you that when I heard the news, I immediately began rebuttaling and went into denial. My wife has just informed me that there is no such word as rebuttaling. She says the word is rebutting. But I don't care because I'm alive. Thank you. P.S. That's another thing dead people don't say." How can you top Bill Cosby?
If I was going to die, be with the Jell-O and choke on the pudding pop, it might be a death. With a pudding. Death by pudding. Chocolate pudding.
Can you overdose on pudding pops?
Worst Cosby impression ever.
Okay. And then another one, Russell Crowe.
Okay.
He was supposedly died in June 10th of 2010, filming a movie. Apparently, supposedly fell off a cliff to his death. And so he released a tweet later that day saying, "Unable to answer tweets, fell off a mountain in Austria. All over Red Rover. Don't know how I got there, but the media are never wrong. Goodbye." I got two more.
Okay.
Number 9, a lady who looks like she is dead, Joan Rivers.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Back to Russell Crowe.
Yeah, she said, "I don't know where this came from. I did very well performing this weekend in Ottawa, and I didn't even bomb on stage. I think this story came from Betty White, that bitch."
One thing I will say for Joan Rivers, she is so inappropriate and often very funny.
Right.
But I know she has writers, so it's not all for her.
Right. And I remember back in the 80s, she was the center square on Hollywood Squares.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, and she almost never got a question wrong, and I think they were feeding her the answers.
They probably were.
Yeah.
And the reason that I did not know that is probably because I wouldn't have recognized her with her own skin.
Probably so. But, I mean, even back then, there was talk of, the plastic surgery. So, And then the last one of our favorite people, The Rock.
No.
Yes.
Someone said he died?
Yeah, and he supposedly died after falling off a cliff in New Zealand. Sounds familiar? If any famous person ever dies falling off a cliff in New Zealand, just don't believe it.
I would, if David Merle, this message is for you. If you choose not to come back for the next episode, Jason is going to tweet out that you fell off a cliff in New Zealand to our followers in the Twitterverse.
Okay. But The Rock's response, he posted on Twitter, "I would love to meet the person who is starting rumors of my death to show them how a dead foot feels up their ass."
Dwayne Johnson, there were two times that he was slightly injured in my mind. One of them was Doom, and one of them was the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
But those two things excluded because we can't win them all, apparently.
Right. I do like that he tries to do some family movies every once in a while, like The Tooth Fairy and The Game Plan.
The Game Plan worked for me.
Yeah.
Tooth Fairy, not so much.
I never did see Tooth Fairy, but The Game Plan was a decent movie.
Yeah.
I like that he kind of tries to do that stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, he's really found his niche in the action genre. But yeah, occasionally he'll do something. When he did Be Cool and he played the gay cowboy, I thought that was so genius for him to accept that kind of role. because it was just not what you would expect from him.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you got to break out of your comfort zone.
Agreed. That's something that Tom Cruise has found in his career as it's kind of gone on and on and on.
Although I will say this, his new movie might actually be decent.
I'm hearing that it's good. I haven't seen a good movie by him since The Last Samurai.
Yes, it's been a while since I've said that about a Tom Cruise movie. So,
And then from what I understand, they're going to eventually create Top Gun, the sequel.
I've heard that's in the works.
How many years has it been? 30? 20?
That was around 87, 88, so yeah, it's getting up there.
If they wait too much longer, Berlin's going to have to fly this way so they can sing Take My Breath Away and actually mean it.
Right.
Tom Cruise has just lost all of his breath. He is now dead because he fell off a cliff in New Zealand.
Fell off a cliff in New Zealand.
Rest in peace, Tom Cruise. We hope that you've landed in your spiritual temple for the Raelians. And now we've brought this all back full circle. You're welcome. So what else have you noticed this week in the news?
On the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon this past week, he had actress Shailene Woodley on. She's probably best known for Divergent. I've kind of keeping an eye on her because she's going to play Mary Jane in the next Spider-Man movie. But she was on to promote her new movie, The Fault Within Our Stars, I believe is what it's called.
The Fault Within Our Stars?
I think that's what it's called.
The fault within the stars is that they keep falling off of New Zealand cliffs.
Yes. And Jimmy Fallon asked her about being compared to Jennifer Lawrence. And anyone who's a regular listener of the show knows we love Jennifer Lawrence here at the Cap.
Love her.
Okay. And her response was, well, comparisons always lead to despair. Now, despair is kind of a strong word for me.
I would say so.
Okay. And the article says there was sudden silence, and the audience, which was shocked and angry, began to boo. Okay? And, Jimmy Fallon's all about, laughing and having fun.
Yeah, he's a happy guy.
Okay. And she went on to say, as women, we are constantly told that we need to compare ourselves to a girl in school, to our coworkers, to the images in magazines. How is the world going to advance if we're always comparing ourselves to others? I admire Jennifer Lawrence, but she's everyone's favorite person to compare me to. Is it because we both have short hair and a vagina? I see us as separate individuals, and that's important. As women, our insecurities are based on all of these comparisons, and that creates distress.
Well, I think the good news, and I think something that she would be proud of, is that after that interview, nobody is going to compare themselves to Shailene Woodley, at least voluntarily.
No one will make that mistake again. Although I do want to say, if you look at the careers of the two, she's doing Spider-Man. Jennifer Lawrence is doing X-Men.
Right.
Shailene Woodley did Divergent, which appears to be kind of a low-rent version of The Hunger Games.
Right.
With Jennifer Lawrence. So there's some similar career choices there. Now, they went on to edit it out of the show.
Oh, did they?
They did edit it out. And I don't think it was a censorship issue. I think it was just once the audience started booing, I think Jimmy Fallon probably felt bad that he asked the question, and so just trying to avoid the controversy.
Sure. Well, it wasn't happy enough for the Tonight Show.
No, it wasn't.
For the current Tonight Show. But she, it's not like they compared her to Lena Dunham.
Yeah,
so
it's like, how dare you compare me to maybe the hottest actress, in Hollywood. Not even hot from a beauty standpoint, just hot from a career standpoint.
Yeah. It'd be like Will Ferrell saying, don't compare me to Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think there's a reasonable comparison.
Right. Because for a while when they were doing that drum off, I couldn't tell which one was which.
There was the drum off on Fallon, and it was amazing that Will Ferrell actually knew how to drum.
Yeah.
And then he brought out the old cowbell skit from SNL, which was fantastic.
That was fantastic.
It was like the best way you could have ended it. Because you knew he wasn't going to win.
Right.
But he could win in a way that only Will Ferrell could win.
Right.
And he did. So I guess the long story short, the moral of this whole segment is there's one person we will not be tipping the cap to tonight. Her name is Shailene Woodley.
Right.
She might get mad at us if we do.
It's just, whenever there's trouble with Jennifer Lawrence, the cap is going to step in and defend her honor.
Absolutely. And I think we probably tipped the cap to Jennifer Lawrence at one point or another.
I think we did.
So I wouldn't want to create another parallel by tipping the cap to
right.
Woodley.
So, she's on our banned list from people we tip the cap to.
You've been blocked. And with that said, let's go ahead and tip the cap for the week. Who are you going to tip the cap to on episode 13?
I just want to tip my cap to all the superhero movies that have came out this summer.
Yeah?
Yeah, Captain America 3 was really great. X-Men 3, the new X-Men, it might be the best superhero movie to come out since the Avengers, which is high praise from me.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people haven't liked it. I really enjoyed the last Spider-Man movie.
I have not seen it, but I saw the Captain America sequel, and it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I had to defend superhero movies at work the other day to a kid who said that they were all stupid and they were all the same, and he fell asleep during the Avengers, and I just couldn't believe my ears. And then we got into an argument, I kid you not, because he claimed that The Blair Witch Project was a good movie. I said, your taste is skewed, sir. Or it was like that. It was like the Princess Bride meme with the Montoya character looking confused, and I wanted to be like, good. You keep saying this word. I do not think it means what you think it means. I will go ahead and tip the cap this week to. I hadn't put much thought into it, so I'm not really sure, but I think that I'll have to tip it to a Mr. Ben Stiller. That's kind of a random pick. I know,
okay.
But my wife and I watched this movie that he was in last December. A few nights ago on Comcast, we rented The Secret Life or The Secret World of Walter Mitty.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it was Life or World. But, man, it was good.
Was it?
It was a good movie. Like, way better than I expected it to
It
be.
looked interesting from the commercials, but I haven't been able to see it yet.
Yeah, visually it was great. There was just some really, really cool scenery. The story was good. Kristen Wiig was in it, and she was actually tolerable, and normally I don't feel that way about Kristen Wiig.
Right.
And it was just like, man, like Ben Stiller made a movie that's not because he gets typecasted, and in this movie he was he had moments, but he was a more serious role overall, and it was just really good. That's all I can say about it. So tipping the cap to the creators and to Ben Stiller for playing the part well.
Yeah, I haven't made it a priority to see it because there's not a superhero in it.
This is true. No superheroes, but if I could quote Ben Stiller in Starsky and Hutch in telling you to watch this film, do it.
Do it.
Do it. And with that, episode 13 of the Culture and Arts Podcast has come to an end. My name is Joe Ruiz. With me is Jason Merle. We tip the cap to you, and we will see you next week. Make sure you follow us on Twitter @CapPodcast. Peace!